Hey guys, Weeby News here. So today I'm going to be doing my analysis video for the new Danganronpa 3 anime trailer, and it'll also sort of double up as some of my final thoughts and theories before Danganronpa 3 airs. And first of all, let me say there is a lot to talk about regarding this trailer, a lot more than I initially thought when I first watched it, but going back through it I realized there's a lot of things I want to bring up. But before I do that, I do want to mention something, and that is that me, Omega Valwyn, and Taichinchin will be hosting another Despaircast episode this Sunday on Omega Valwyn's YouTube channel at 6 p.m. Central Time and 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you guys want to find out when that's your time zone, I will link a Timezone Converter in the description so you guys can sort of like convert it. But anyways, I hope you guys are looking forward to that. I think we're just going to be talking about like Danganronpa 3 and basically getting hyped for it, different theories and stuff, so check it out if you're interested. And of course, if you miss it, the stream will be completely up on his channel and I'll probably post it to my own as well. So as for the analysis video, I'm going to be using the English subtitled version of the trailer created by Engine Wolf, Taichinchin, and ComunCoutinho. I will link all of their accounts in the description if you want to check them out, and I'll also link the video if you want to watch it yourself without me talking over it. Also, I'm not going to cover absolutely everything in this trailer because some of it I honestly just don't really feel like it needs to be covered, but I will be talking about all the major highlights and just some other smaller things I want to point out or talk about. So anyway, without further ado, let's begin. So the trailer opens up and says Monokuma has been resurrected once again, and mankind's hope, the Future Foundation, is now faced with a despair-inducing killing game. So the first thing I want to briefly talk about is this shot where we see Naegi handcuffed with Asahina and Kirigiri in the background. Nothing too particularly interesting about this shot, but since Naegi is the only one handcuffed in this, it makes me believe that he is being escorted by Asahina and Kirigiri to the rest of the Future Foundation members to be trialed for his treason, which we will see the room where I assume he's being trialed in soon. Next, we see an overview look at Future Foundation's headquarters, and then text that says, "This begins a story of despair where hope kills hope." And then after this, it flashes to a burning city with a giant Monokuma lurking in the background. At first, I was baffled, wondering where this could be taking place, but I did a bit of research and have come to believe that the bright, pointy building in this shot is actually the Tokyo Skytree. I'll pull up an image so you guys can compare the two if you'd like, but I have to say, in my opinion, they look just alike, so this implies to me that this shot is taking place in Tokyo and more than likely where the despair and ruin starts. The next thing I'm gonna briefly mention is these shots where you can see Hagakure shaking on a building and then the Future Foundation members preparing to fight something or someone, and based off of this, the only thing I can really come up with at the moment is maybe that they're about to face off with Monokuma. This is when he sort of crashes the trial that's going on and they're getting ready to try and fight him. Maybe he brought some Mono Beasts with him and that's what they're preparing to fight. The other reason I sort of think that it could be this is because you see Tengen sort of standing in the middle as if he's facing off with somebody. And since Tengen is the official head of the Future Foundation, it would make sense for him to be the one facing Monokuma right here. Next, we'll be moving into the sort of character introduction section for this. I'll be going through each character and sort of giving my opinion. The first one up is Kazuo Tengen, who is Hope's Peak Academy's ex-headmaster. His quote in this trailer is this everyone? It's been a long time since we've gathered everyone here." Of course, this is probably just referring to the fact that they have to hold a trial or a meeting. But one thing I do want to mention about his character, and also referring to a lot of the other characters, is that I will be referencing greatly to this official relationship chart that the Tumblr user Jinjo just translated. And if you want to check out her original post about it, I'll link it in the description. Basically, this chart states each Future Foundation member's relationship with each other and how they feel Naegi should be trialed for his actions. In this chart, we can see 3 different group opinions towards Naegi, these being neutral, moderate, and radical. And according to this post, Tengen is on the moderate side. It states in the chart that he wants to question him about it before jumping to conclusions. Next on the list is Daisaku Bandai, and he basically just questions, "Isn't this exactly why you gathered us all here?" I do have to say, I knew that Daisaku would have a female voice actress, but I did not expect his voice to be so cutesy sounding. I'm not completely sure why they decided to go in this direction for his character, but I'm assuming it'll grow on me. But in the relation chart, he is listed in the neutral group, so it doesn't seem that he cares much either way. To be honest, this isn't totally shocking to me since he does seem like a pretty laid-back guy. Next up is Ryota Mitarai, and he is just stating in his quote that he is from the 10th branch. branch. In the relationship chart, he is listed in the same group as Tengen and wants to question Naegi before jumping to conclusions. I am really interested to see what his role is in this anime and his relation to the ultimate imposter, because for those of you who may not have heard yet, Ryota Mitarai is the person that the ultimate imposter is disguised as in the Despair volume. Next after this is Seiko Kimura. In this she states, "If that's the case, I wish I was at least ready for a confession." At first I assumed she was referring to Naegi confessing, but when looking at the relationship chart you can see that not only is she in the radical group that believes Naegi should be executed, but that she and Ando both see each other as a backstabber. So some of this makes me wonder if this is instead some snarky comment aimed at Ando. Another reason I believe this could be the case is because the next comment is by Munakata, which states, "Now's not the time for inner strife, you guys," which could refer to them both butting heads. I know these lines aren't necessarily in order, but I do think they could imply different relationships and such. Also, it can be noted how drastically Seiko's eyes change in this shot. I did see that Taichinchin compared them to Kodaka's eyes, which I do see. They also said that there is a pretty big difference between them as well, which I also agree with. But I do want to say that the oddest thing about this to me has to be how her eyes almost turn cat-like in this. Next up is Kyosuke Munakata. There's nothing too notable to say about him in this clip. We all already know that he holds the most hatred towards the Remnants of Despair and is probably going to be the biggest opponent towards Naegi in the Future Foundation, and this was something that was revealed back in those character reports a couple of months ago. In the relationship chart that Jinjo just translated, it states that he and Juzo have a tight relationship and count on each other, and also that he doesn't want to push Chisa too hard, and that also he is of course in the radical group that wants to execute Naegi. Next up is Hagakure, and in this we see Hagakure's crystal ball is still intact, and there's been a lot of debate as to what this could symbolize, and many people believe it could symbolize his death or him being a traitor, or even some people thinking he could be the mastermind. But since in this clip he says that he's using it to look into Naegi's future, I think it can now also imply bad things to come in Naegi's future as well, and not just Hagakure's. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this small clip right now. Moving on to Asahina's quote, where she states, "Leave it to us just this once." I think she's possibly arguing with the Future Foundation members, probably more specifically the members of the 74th and 76th class, because they are all so radically against Naegi. I've also had a lot of people ask me who I believe the traitor might be, and also who I believe might be the first person killed in Danganronpa 3 Future, and I honestly don't have any good guesses for who the traitor could be, but I do have a sort of theory about who I believe might be killed off first. My idea is they might kill either Asahina or Hagakure, because it would show that none of the original characters are safe right from the beginning, but it also wouldn't be as hard to write them out as it would be for Naegi or Kirigiri if they got killed off at the beginning. Which I'm not trying to say that they don't hold like a significant role in Danganronpa, but that they did not progress the story nearly as much as Naegi or Kirigiri did, so I believe it would be a lot easier for the writers to write them out. So in my opinion, killing off either of them would probably be the safest way for the creators to show that nobody's safe in the new anime from the get-go, and that's why I think that might be a direction they want to go in. Next is Kirigiri's segment, where she states, "You never change to someone," and at first it was sort of hard to figure out who she was talking to me, but I believe she's actually talking to Juzo, because you can see the outline of like a fur sort of hoodie on this character in the very first shot you see of it at the beginning of the trailer. And as we all know, he's the only one with a fur hoodie sort of jacket. Now moving on to Chisa Yukizome, who states, "Don't you feel like there could be a greater hope if you two combine your hope and work together?" In the relationship chart, it states that she's a part of the radical group that wants to execute Naegi, but she's more than likely just associated with that group because of her undying love for Munakata, so I think this could imply that truly she does want them to work together, although in any case, her character is still very suspicious to me because of her appearance in that other Danganronpa 3 trailer, so neither of these could be her true feelings after all. Next up is Great Gozu, who looks to be challenging someone. He is listed as Tengen's bodyguard and on the moderate side against Naegi, so I'm assuming he's challenging someone who has either said something very rude to Tengen or sort of threatened him in a way. Probably Juzo, because he looks like he would threaten somebody in a conversation. Next up is Juzo, and in this he says, "Weren't we talking about how we should kill anyone who supports them?" Again, he really wants Naegi to be executed, and he's very against the Remnants of Despair and very vocal about it, from what I can tell in this clip. Next up is Sonosuke Izoi, who is also on the Naegi should be executed side of the relationship chart, and his quote is, "Once a traitor, always a traitor," and we can also see him being fed some sort of candy by Ando Raruka. So definitely people were theorizing that there may have been some sort of relationship between the two, and and it definitely seems like there is maybe even a possible romantic relationship between them, and I have to admit, this clip is pretty dang cute. Something else a little bit noticeable about his character that was also listed in the relationship chart is that he has beef against Seiko for betraying Ando. Next is Ando Ruka, who is also very against Naegi. Her quote is, "Our enemies are the ones who destroyed the world." And after this we have Koichi Kizakura, who is listed on the moderate side with Tengen, and there's nothing really too particular to say here. His quote is, "Now this is a problem." Now we have come up upon Miya Gekugahara, and I have to say that there is a lot to talk about referring to her. So a lot of you guys have messaged me this theory or have talked to me about believing this, and this theory is that Miya is actually Monica in disguise. The reason a lot of people believe this is because firstly they look alike, secondly in the official artwork it appears that Miya is presented to be in a wheelchair, and since her voice actress has not been listed yet, it could mean that they have the same voice actress, and that they're hiding the voice actress because they don't want to reveal that's Monica. So the reason I haven't bought into this theory personally is because back in December when the Danganronpa 3 anime was first revealed, he stated in an interview that the only reason the characters look older is because they've matured internally. Since Kodaka is a troll, there's always the possibility that he's fibbing, but it doesn't really seem like a good thing to troll us about. The last character introduction is Makoto Naegi, and we see him standing in front of all the Future Foundation members, and then you start to hear Monokuma talk underneath it. And of course, all of this leads to this very, very infamous picture of all the remnants of despair on some sort of computer in the Future Foundation's headquarters. So I'm not going to be going through each and every one of these right now because I'll be talking more about them in the Despair volume part, these being Kazuichi, Teruteru, Sonya, Mihiru, and Izuru. But some things that stood out to me from this shot is of course Fuyuhiko's eye, which a lot of us theorized that there was a parallel between what happened in Super Danganronpa 2 to Fuyuhiko's eye in the virtual world and what he did to himself as an ultimate despair. So this picture pretty much confirms that he was the one who in fact replaced his eye with Junko's, like a lot of us had theorized. So next I'm going to be talking about Mikan. She is of course dressed as a nurse, so some of me wonders if when she was in despair she went to hospitals dressed as an official nurse to get to each patient and inject them with some sort of poison or to mess with their medicines or something like that, or just other various ways to kill patients. Also in the Danganronpa 3 relationship chart it mentions that the fourth branch is the one that's in charge of protecting victims, and since the Future Foundation is a huge organization I would assume that they would have camps set up to help injured victims. So I was thinking that maybe Mikan pretended to be a nurse at one of those camps, and that was what initially led to her capture. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Tanaka, which I am very concerned about. So first, there seems to be some more markings on him, which are not present in Super Danganronpa 2 and in the Despair volume, and also he looks to be in some sort of straitjacket, and I'm not sure exactly what the reason for this could be other than that maybe the Future Foundation put him in one after his initial capture, but the part that worries me about this is that it looks like he's wearing something made out of animal fur, and his Dark Devas of Destruction are nowhere to be seen. Now I don't think that the fur he's wearing is from the Dark Devas of Destruction because that's way too much fur to be from them, but the whole thing that worries me about this is that back when I did Gundam's character analysis, some theories I saw about what he would do in despair was kill animals to push himself into more despair, and I really did not want this theory to be true because it just depresses the heck out of me because I just can't imagine Gundam killing animals. It's so sad, and it also does worry me that the Dark Devas of Destruction are nowhere to be found. I mean seriously, if he hurts them, I am gonna cry. My one sort of hope when thinking about this is that hamsters don't really live for very long, and of course that's also depressing to think that his hamsters could die, but them dying for natural reasons is a lot less depressing than him killing them or somebody else killing them, so I'm just gonna live in hope and think about that right now. But I am curious to hear y'all's opinions on this as well. Next up is Akane, and I've seen the theory lurking around online that she may be the remnant of despair that starved herself to death to put herself into more despair since she loved food so much. And this is because if you look at the picture from Super Danganronpa 2, it does have the same hair as her, and it would make the most sense for her to be the one to do this. But she definitely doesn't look as half dead as that picture looks, but we also don't really get a great look in this new picture at her body to see how skinny she is or if she has begun starving herself or not. What I was thinking was that maybe in the picture in Super Danganronpa 2, it was just an exaggeration of how far she could go, instead of exactly what she looks like. Now moving on to Nekomaru, there's not much to really say here, other than that his lightning bolts are red now instead of blue. I was sort of wondering if there would be a parallel between him becoming Nekomaru in Super Danganronpa 2, since there was a sort of parallel with Fuyuhiko's eye, but he seems to be pretty human-like in this picture, although I guess there is a chance he has some sort of robotic limbs or something like that, but I'm not sure if it's as symbolic as Fuyuhiko's eye, so maybe not, but it was just something I had sort of thought about. Next is Ibuki, who we see here wearing a kimono. I'm going to go ahead and jump the gun a bit and talk about this now. There's also a sort of despair flash that we see before the Despair Volume trailer starts, and you can see that it seems as if Saionji and Ibuki are a duo performance group in some sort. So maybe their performances push the ideas of despair or brainwashing in some way. I will talk about this quick little flash later on, but I do think it's kind of cool that you can see her in a kimono in this, and also later that she's sort of performing with Saionji. And so next I'm going to be talking about Saionji. So back in Super Danganronpa 2, when they showed that picture depicting all the ultimate despairs, I decided to try and figure out which picture each of these are referencing. And I've come to believe that maybe the one talking about the remnants of despair killing their parents could be a shot of Saionji's parents. And the reason I say this is because in the free time events with Saionji, you do see that she does have a sort of sadness about her when talking about her parents and the lack of a relationship she has with them. So it would make sense that in despair she would attempt to kill her parents. Next, I'm going to talk about the ultimate imposter, which honestly I really don't have anything to say about him in this picture, other than I am a bit confused as to why they included the night vision goggles. Lastly, we hear Tarako voicing Monokuma, which does honestly sound pretty different, but I have to say I really like it, and I think it's a good idea that she brought her own take onto the character. Now moving on to the Despair Volume. So the first shot we see is Peko fighting as Fuyuhiko's tool, more than likely, with Fuyuhiko standing in the background. And an interesting theory I saw about this was that possibly while in despair, Fuyuhiko really did use and refer to Peko as his tool, and maybe that was why the idea was ingrained in her during Super Danganronpa 2, since we see there that he obviously did not feel that way at all. Also, we see the Monokuma mind-controlling helmets from another episode on what can assume to be Yakuza members. It definitely makes sense that the remnants of despair would make use of the brainwashing helmets to pull more people onto their side. Next is Kazuichi, who is implied to have built a giant Monokuma and was probably the one that crafted the original design. Some people believe that this is the Big Bang Monokuma from another episode, but I personally think there are probably several of them, and this one is more than likely the first one made, and the one seen at the beginning of the trailer, since it took place in Tokyo, where Hope's Peak Academy is located. But this shot also piques my interest because there's a theory that Kazuichi was the one who designed and created the executions for Danganronpa 1 as well. One reason for this, of course, being that he's the ultimate mechanic, but also because in his free time events he states that his dream is to build a rocket ship, and that is the first execution that we see in Danganronpa 1. So since there's confirmation now that he built and designed the giant Monokumas, I'd be really interested to see if they confirm the execution theory in Danganronpa 3 as well. Next is a shot of Teru Teru in front of two conveyor belts holding Monokuma heads. Something interesting is that it also seems like the things on the conveyor belts are Monokuma heads as well. I'm wondering if he's mass producing some sort of poisonous food to the world boxed inside of these Monokuma heads. Moving on, we see Sonya speaking in front of an army with Monokuma brainwashing helmets on, and Mihiru behind her taking photos of it. My guess would be that Sonya, of course, brainwashed an army with a Monokuma helmets and is also ordering them to kill and slaughter innocents. And Mihiru is in the background taking pictures so that she can promote the incidents and cause despair all around the world. Because let's be honest, if I saw promotion online that there was a huge army preparing to end thousands of innocent lives, I would be quite in despair from it. Next is Hiyoko and Ibuki, who look to be a tag team. I'm thinking that this is a despair-inducing performance by them, and it looks as if something is burning in the background, possibly on a television screen. So maybe they perform with despair-inducing vents played behind them. I guess they could do this to create rallies and encourage people to go out and loot, kill, etc. Other than that, I might be overthinking this and it's not actually a television screen behind them and they're just like destroying stuff, but that was just something I thought of when I sort of looked at the backdrop behind them, because it looks sort of blurred and almost like it has that television filter on it. Then, of course, in the last shot of these, we see Komaeda bowing to Kodaka and Nagisa with the Monokuma kid standing behind him. As for if this means we'll see the Warriors of Hope at all in this, I am hoping for maybe a cameo of some sort. After this, we see all the remnants of despair in the Hope section of this trailer. Not too much that I'm planning on analyzing in this because it's mostly just like goofy antics and character introductions again. The thing in this section I do want to discuss is Chiaki and Hajime's lines at the end of the trailer though. Chiaki's states it doesn't really matter if you have a talent or not, and then it shows Hajime and he says, if I at least had a talent. So the theory I've seen a lot of people discussing online is that Chiaki's potential death may be what fully pushes Hajime into despair, or at least heavily influences his despair. Something particular said by Junko's AI in Super Danganronpa 2 is that Hope's Peak Academy turned him into Izuru, but she was the one who broke his spirit, turning him into an ultimate despair. She also says that after Hajime is turned into Izuru, all of his thoughts, hobbies, memories, etc. are pushed back into the farthest plane of his brain. So I'm not sure how likely it is that he'll remember Chiaki after his surgery, but as seen in Super Danganronpa 2, he does have a very strong will, so I don't think it's totally impossible. I think maybe he'll agree to become Izuru without fully understanding what it is, and then after the surgery realize it was a terrible mistake and still hold hope that he can go back to becoming Hajime. That is, if his will is strong enough to keep parts of himself after the surgery. So on the off chance he does remember Chiaki and himself a bit, I think Junko killing her or organizing her death somehow could force him to completely lose hope of ever becoming Hajime again and force all of his past memories completely out of his brain so he fully falls into despair and becomes Izuru completely. But this is total speculation on my part, and it's just a way to figure out if this theory could work. Because honestly, I think it's a really cool theory and I would be interested to see it implemented into the anime, so this is just sort of how I think it could sort of come about. One last thing I do want to mention regarding Chiaki is that if you look back at the V3 trailer released at the Tokyo Game Show last year, you can see after all the V3 footage is finished, it states, and also referring to the Danganronpa 3 anime, and it shows this picture, which is now presumed to be Chiaki. You can see they look very, very similar. Also, in a recent interview with Kodaka, he does state that Chiaki is the core to Danganronpa 3 Despair, so it makes sense for them to use her here to sort of promote it and give like an Easter egg. But that concludes my analysis. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sorry this video ended up being a lot later than I thought it would be, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully it was worth the wait, and I will see you real soon.
Subscribe to Weeby News for more hope-filled videos.